like I said, the whole thing is in disrepair in the beginning, so as you could see. So, in the story, in particular, as we go along for the books, every beginning starts as similar as this one does. Kind of like in Harry Potter, where every book you read is the same in the beginning. So, he starts with the Dursleys. In this one, the Banks are always in disarray before Mary Poppins comes along and fixes everything up for them. You see, the children in here, Jane and Michael Banks, their life is so in disarray, their parents don't even notice they exist. So in this one, Mr. Banks doesn't really change his ways until the very end of the series. So, in this book, he is deliberately, not really hanging out with his children at all. In this one, he's literally, kind of already going away, packing his things, and going to work. Not even acknowledging his kids are even existing at this point. He's just letting the nanny do all the work for him. So he's just already pretending his children do not exist at all. He just cannot have the children around. And then the mother, who is suffering enough already. Anyway, why is this happening? Well, the author, Pelly Travis, is correct to inform us, like I said, she has a great sense of humor in this book. While she is writing this book in particular, Katie Nana has already left and gone. So by the time we read this book, she has already left. Not even a hi, not even a goodbye even. So she is definitely gone from this book. And that's all you need to know from the beginning here. Let me just go to the ending here a little bit. But towards the end of the book, here, hold on. Let's get to the spot here. Right here. It says right here how well everything was tidy and well. Like how everything was kept and nice and clean and stuff. So, they're explaining here in the end that everything has gone smoothly. Everything has gone so well in this book that, when Mary Poppins arrived, everything went so well for her. So, right then and there, Mary Poppins came and fixed everything for them. Before I move on, I'd like to mention that in this book in particular, there are at least 4 children in the beginning of this book. We'll go on to more later on. But as of this book, the first book, there are 4 children. Jane, Michael, and 2 others, the twins, which we'll get into as well. They are characters that will join in as well. I forgot their names. I think one's name is John. I could be wrong about that. Hold on. John and Barbara. There you go. Barbara and John are the 2 twins that are babies that Mary Poppins takes care of as well. Chapter 2. The Day Out. Now, I don't quite remember what happens in this chapter of the book, so I'm going to read a little bit just to remind myself a little bit. And this might be helpful for you guys if you want to read it yourself one day. Very third Thursday, this, said Mr. Banks, 2 till 5. Mary Poppins eyed with his certainly the best people, ma'am, she said, gave to every second Thursday to 1 till 6. Those I shall take or blank. Well, I also forgot to mention that in this book, Mary Poppins is a bit stricter in this one. As you can see, she's already taken control of the Banks family completely, just like in the movie where she completely takes charge of everything. So, in this book, Mary Poppins is very strict in this book. More than you think. I mean, the children are sometimes afraid of her in this book and how she disciplines them. It's very interesting the way she disciplines them. It's not very unnatural. So sometimes she gets to be very afraid of her when she does discipline them. But we'll get into that when we do. So, all you need to know is that she's very strict at this moment. And that every time she makes a noise or some kind of thing, her usual thing is that she always sniffs like this. Like that, for instance. She'll make a little sniff to tell someone that she's angry or upset or something that she wants to say. Anyway, moving on. Just want to say that right in there. Mary Poppins paused, and Miss Banks knew what the pause meant. It meant that if she didn't get what she wanted, Mary Poppins would not stay. Very, very, very well. Like I said, she's more stricter in the book, so if something bad happens, she's going to leave immediately, said Mrs. Banks. Hurried through, she wished Mary Poppins did not know so much more about the best people than she did herself. So Mary Poppins put on her white gloves and cackled her umbrella and under her arm, not because it was raining, but because it had such a beautiful handle that she couldn't possibly leave it at home. How could you have leave your umbrella behind if it had a parrot's head for a handle? Besides, Mary Poppins was very vain and liked to look her best. Indeed, she was quite sure that she never looked anything else. Another thing in these books, Mary Poppins is very vain in the books, much more vain than you think. In fact, she's a lot like Gaston in the way sometimes. In fact, she stops halfway through the book, and we'll get to this eventually, where she looks at herself and just how beautiful she is. So, half the time, she is very vain about herself. She talks about how beautiful she is and how perfect she is. Now, it's not like Gaston, where he's very vain about herself or anything. She just admires the fact that she's perfect in every way. That's basically how this is. Unfortunately, I don't really address that very much in the movie, but in this book, they do. Jane waved to her from the nursery window. "Where are you going?" she asked. She called, kindly closing the window, replied Mary Poppins, and Jane's head hurried despaired inside the nursery. Mary Poppins walked down the garden path and opened the gate. Once outside the lane, she set off walking very quickly as if she were afraid to the afternoon. Running away from her if she didn't keep up with it, and run away from her if she didn't. And at the corner, she turned to the right and then the left, nodded hurriedly to the policeman, who said it was a nice day, and by the time she felt that her day out that began, she stopped beside an empty motor car, and the odor put her to hat straight, and with the help of the wind screen in which was reflected, then she smoothed down from her flight and tackled her umbrella more than under her arm, so that the handle, or rather the parrot, could be seen by everybody. After those particulars, she went forward to meet the matchman. I just want to say right now that I'm not really a good reader, so if there's a word I might mispronounce correctly, please ignore it, because I'm just reading a brief summary of what this book says, okay? So take anything personally, okay? If I'm saying it wrong, keep it to yourself, okay? Don't make a hurtful message on there saying I can't read right, okay? Because I already know I don't. Anyway, this chapter is basically about Mary Poppins already having a break with Bert, having a little date with him. Now, unlike the movie, where she goes off with Bert to the matchman or the matchman in this book, where she goes into a different world along with him. In this version, it's just her and Bert. The children not with her. Jane does not follow her at all. She just takes a break. She just takes a day off. Now, there is a thing where she does say she is on a day off in this book, in the movie, but that's a whole different thing. 2 separate days and 2 separate things going on. So, in this version, she's already gone to her date and all the way on her day off. So, in this book, she's already going on a date with her leading man, which is Bert. So, Bert in this version has 2 different things. Bert is, well, the matchman. That's all he is. He's not a chimney sweep. Chimney sweep and the matchman are two different characters in this book. So we're going to see how they play out. Now, in this chapter, they go on their usual date, usually the same. There's a carousel, there's a little coffee shop, whatever. It's all the same in this book. All the same pretty much, except for the fact that children are not there. There is no horse race present either. And furthermore, there are no penguins. So it's really just Mary Poppins and Bert enjoying themselves in the chalk art that he had made, that he jumped into, but on a date, where it's just them having coffee with, or tea, you could call it tea, a tea place, with a butler. Yes, there are no penguins in this one, just a butler man. Now, during this version, you could tell that Ellie Travers did not want animals in her movie, and frankly so, considering she never had animals to begin with in her books. But if you go further into the movies, which we'll get to in the book, which we'll get into eventually, is that there are animals in this book, and there are some that do talk, but not in this particular chapter where they are penguins. There are just human beings. So, according to this chapter, there are no animals. But there will be more soon, I promise you that. There are some inspiration of why Disney decided to put animals in the movie, but it's just not in this chapter. So, there you go. Ellie Travers just wanted this story to be exactly right. The thing about her is that, everything in this book is almost exactly the same. Almost. There are some differences, but I think the reason why she hated some of the songs and the animals, why she's so against them, is the fact that, she didn't want anything to change. This book is like her whole life story right in front of us right here. She had a nanny exactly like Mary Poppins. And, when it came time for her to write this book, it was important to her. And the fact that it was her lifestyle, and the fact that it was her life almost, and also the fact that it almost became a thing in this book, that, I gotta tell you that in this book, this is her whole life. So, she was protected about this whole entire thing. She lacked the fact that she wanted to change anything in her books. She had a hard time with change. I think that's why her and Walt Disney did not get along. Walt Disney loved change completely. Mary Poppins, Ellie Travers, on the other hand, did not. She wanted to keep everything exactly the same because this book was her whole life. And the fact of it changing meant a whole lot to her and a big change for her. Now, the fact that her whole childhood is changed, the fact. So this meant a whole lot to her in a way. Her childhood was really terrible, I gotta say. For a minute here, let me just take a look. If you saw Missy and Mr. Banks, you would know that her life is very sad. Her father was terribly sick, very terribly sick, that her family could not function without someone helping the children out. So they, called a nanny to help out with that. And when they did, the mother was depressed about that too. Her husband being so sick that she almost killed herself. And we'll get into that simple topic very soon. But what you need to know is that during this time, it's a reckless time. Now, I also should say that everyone like Mary other Terrazone episodes I've done in here, most of them are kid-friendly safe. This one, unfortunately, is not. There's a lot of adult subjects in here. So, much as I'm talking about Mary Poppins, I suggest that children stay away from this book. And stay away from this video. And who are you to parent your children and watch this video? Who are you? Anyway, just to tell you, this is not for kids. Go watch something else if you want them to watch Mary Poppins. Watch the original movie, even. Just don't watch me. Keep your tact, and if you can't control the comfort of this particular show, do not watch. I mean it. We're going to get some very dark stuff and adult stuff around here, so please, must advised. Anyway, this chapter is really all about them going on a special date, and that's pretty much it for this chapter. So we will move on to the next chapter. Here's a picture of them sitting together on their date. but you'll like to see that real quick. It's like original drawings of them, how it should look like. You can see the carousel there too in the parade, the carnival and everything. So see, there's some inspiration there. Okay, next is laughing gas. So pretty much this chapter is all about Uncle Albert, like we see in the movie. Pretty much everything's the same, only, and this is only the same thing, is that in this book, this version, the Uncle Albert has a maid in this one. And during this particular sequence, the maid eventually, this is a very funny part, the maid eventually floats up as well, making her laugh too. And she's so afraid of it too. She's very strict about what she does too. So the maid this whole entire time is kind of shocked that she's floating in midair. So at that moment, she is like floating. It's kind of funny. So anyway, that's pretty much the same thing. Another thing about this chapter is that Uncle Albert's not called Uncle Albert. In this movie, in this particular book, he is called Mr. Wig. And Mr. Wig, is like Uncle Albert. It's the same person, pretty much. Just that he's called something different in this book, particular. In a minute, Jane thought he was wearing a wig in this book because of the name, but that's not true. Anyway, I'm going to read a little bit of what happens in this book, because I don't quite remember. But I think that's how it starts. It's pretty much the same thing, only... Let's see. I forget why she has to go there. Hold on, I see. Are you quite sure he will be at home? Said Jane as they got off the bus. She and Michael and Mary Poppins would my uncle ask me to bring you? Oh, to bring you? No. To bring you? No. Said Miss Mary Poppins, who was eventually very thrilled to the question. She was wearing her blue coat with the silver buttons. Yeah, so they just came for a visit, I guess. Because there is one version where she has to borrow something from someone. But that's a different chapter, I guess. But anyway, Miss Wig, said the thin lady in the voice herself. How dare you call me Miss Wig? No. Oh, okay, yeah, she's the maid here. The wig is not like, indeed, she's herself in the high, thin, outraged voice. Yeah, like I said, she has a maid there's a maid in this version. The Uncle Albert has a maid in this version. So Bert's not present in this particular chapter. It's just the maid, who also has Mr. Wig as well. So we'll see her float up eventually here in this book. Jane and Michael followed Miss Mary Poppins upstairs. Mary Poppins knocked on the door. Come in, and welcome, called a loud, cheery voice from inside. Jane's heart was pittering with excitement. He is in, she sighed. Michael with a look. Mary Poppins opened the door and pushed them in from her, and the large, cheery room laid before them. At the end of the fire was burning brightly, and the cheery stood an enormous table laid for tea, for cups and plates and bread and butter and cakes and coconut cakes, a large plum cake for pink icing. Well, this is indeed pleasure. A huge voice greeted them, and Jane and Michael looked around for its owner. He was nowhere to be seen. The room appeared to be quite empty. Then they heard Mary Poppins saying crossly, "Oh, Uncle Albert, again, it's not your birthday, is it?" And as she spoke, she looked up at the ceiling. Jane and Michael looked up to their surprise, saw a round, fat, bald man who was hanging in their air without holding on to anything. Indeed, he appeared to be sitting on the air before his legs. They crossed her had just put them down a newspaper which he had been reading when they came in. "My dear," said Mr. Wigg, smiling down at the children, they looking particular at Mary Poppins. "I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid it is my birthday." "Tis ticks," said Mary Poppins. Okay, so in this book, in particular, instead of every day, like in the movie, in this version, he only laughs and goes up in the air only on his birthday. Yeah, so it's every birthday, so it's not too bad like it is in the movie. So, there you go. It's not too bad. Sorry, I just go back here a little bit. I only remembered the last night there was no time, then send your postcard asking you to come another day. Very disgusting, isn't?" he said, looking at Jan Michael. "I can't see Cena rather surprised," said Mr. Wigg. And indeed, their months were so wide open. The instance meant though Mr. Wigg, if he had been a little smaller, might almost have fallen into one of them. "I better explain, I think," Mr. Wigg went on calmly. "You see, it's this way. I'm a cheerful sort of man, and very disparted to laughter. You wouldn't believe, either of you, the number of things that I strike me as being funny. I can laugh at pretty much nearly everything I can." And with that, Mr. Wigg began to bob up and down and shaking with his laughter at the thought of the own cheerfulness. "Uncle Albert," said Mary Poppins, and Mr. Wigg stopped laughing with a jerk. "Oh, beg your pardon, my dear. Where was I? Yes. Well, the funny thing about me is, all right, Mary, I wouldn't laugh it if I can help it, that whenever my birthday falls on a Friday, well, it's all up with me. Absolutely up," said Mr. Wigg. Okay, so it's like he said, every Friday. Every time his birthday ends on a Friday, he laughs. And he goes up in the air. "But why?" began Jane. "But how?" began Michael. "Well, you see, if I laugh on a particular day, I become so filled with laughing gas that I simply can't keep on the ground." Well, there you go. So he's filled with so much laughing gas, like laughing gas makes you laugh so much, that he blows up into the air. Interesting story, huh? And the same thing happens to them, I think, in this book as well. And basically that chapter, it's much the same thing, until later on at the end, where Michael and Jane get so tired from laughing so much, they get down, they come down, and here's the maid going up in midair too, which is pretty funny. But anyway, we skip that part. Move on. Up in the air, Mary Poppins' voice was high and angry. "What do you mean, pray, up in the air?" Jane tried to explain. "Michael means, is their uncle often full of laughing gas? Does he often go rolling and bubbling about the ceiling?" "When blank, rolling and bubbling. What an idea. Rolling and bubbling on the ceiling? You'll be telling me next." Okay, hold on. Oh, cried Jane as she gasped breath with laughter, hand over her heart. Oh my goodness, gobbling gorgeous, roared Mr. Wig, dulling his eyes with the tail of his coat because he couldn't find his handkerchief. It is time to go home, Mary Poppins' voice above the rose in laughter like the trumpet. Suddenly, with all the rush, Michael and Jane and Mr. Wig came down. Okay, so in this version, they didn't need to cry to get down. They just got down. Well, anyway, I guess it was enough for them to leave, enough to make them cry and go. But, towards the end of this book, we find that they fall asleep, and I'll show you why later. But one thing I want to bring up that I didn't bring up before in this book is that every time Mary Poppins does a magical thing like this, like we're going to see in a minute, that after this story, she doesn't believe the children that anything that happened. So they go up to her and say, oh, wasn't that fun, Mary Poppins? Did we have a great time floating against the ceiling? And then she's like, ceiling? Bopping around? That didn't happen. And they're like, what? She kind of acts like it didn't happen at all, and as if they're lying to her, and that she'll call the police if they do more stories, if they make up more stories like this one. So she kind of just pretends it doesn't exist, when really the story is true, that she can make these magical powers happen. She likes to pretend that sometimes it doesn't exist. So she kind of plays it up like it doesn't exist. So it's a funny thing that she does in this book is that she doesn't really, and you do see that a lot in the movie, but not like as much it is in this book. So there's gonna be more of that soon. But he did, said Michael. We saw him at Roll and Bob. How dare you? All you know that my uncle is a sober, honest, hardworking man, and you'll be kind enough to speak in him and don't bit your bus ticket. Roll and Bob, indeed, the idea. Michael and Jane looked across Mary Poppins at each other. They said nothing, for they had led, and it was better not to argue with Mary Poppins, no matter how odd everything seemed. Yeah, so I forgot to mention that Jane and Michael are just in this chapter, and the babies are not involved. There will be more chapters with them involved, too, but just not in this one, in case you were confused. Anyway, but the look at passed between them said it was true, or is it? About Mr. Wig, is Mary Poppins right, or are we? Now, we know this is true, but the children are second guessing themselves here. But there was nobody to give them the right answer. The bus roared on the wilding, larging, bounding, and Mary Poppins sat between them, offered a silent pause again, and they were very tired. They crept closer to her and led up against her sides and sleep, still wondering. Yeah. At the end, they fall asleep. See? That's the picture of them sleeping on the bus. And that's the end of Laughing Gas. Miss Locke's Andrew. Chapter 4. Okay, so in this chapter, it takes a little bit of a different turn. In this chapter, we get to learn about Andrew, the dog. Now, Andrew the dog in this chapter is basically a rich dog who is pampered with so much thanks. Her owner, Miss Locke, treats him like a child, pretty much, and pampers him with the most joyous of things in life, and made different things like that. So one day, Andrew runs away. He gets into the park, and Miss Locke is wondering where he is. He's very worried about him. But you're probably wondering why he's running away. Well, here's the deal. He runs into Mary Poppins, and he tells her what's going on. Andrew has a friend who's a dog named, let me see if I can find it in here. He has a stray dog friend named, I think it's in here somewhere. Hold on. Let me just find it real quick. Willoughby. Okay, here we go. Willoughby was the name of the other dog that was a stray, that was friends with Andrew. You see, Andrew was every now and then, even though he was rich, he would sneak away from Miss Locke to join up with the other dogs and become a stray for a day. So every now and then he does this, and then one day he befriends another dog named Willoughby. Eventually, Andrew convinces Miss Locke to keep Willoughby and keep them as a dog as well, and have them stay in the house along with her. So now Miss Locke has 2 dogs, and Andrew and Willoughby, who are now both together in this book. Mary Poppins explains to her that he really needs his friend along with him, so he can feel more straight and freely. So there you go, the dog is more disciplined. But here in this book, it addresses in this chapter that Mary Poppins, according to this book, can speak dog and pretty much can explain everything to Miss Locke what Andrew is saying. So in this book, that's what the story is all about, pretty much. Moving on, chapter 5, the dancing cow. In this chapter, Jane has a headache, a toothache, and she can't move from her bed or anything. So to help out, Michael tries to imagine something in the window. But unfortunately, there's nothing exciting in the window. It's just all rain and black. Until Mary Poppins comes along and tells them what's really happening. She shows them a little, a cow dancing in the backyard. Mary Poppins is able to give some magic to Michael and able to say, hey, there's a dancing cow outside. And it's true. Mary Poppins makes these things come to life to entertain the children a little bit, make them lessly more happy. I think that's what happens in this book. Now, there is a chapter where Mary Poppins talks about her mother when she's a baby, and it's a story about the cow jumping over a star or something like that. But we'll get to that one. I don't think it's this chapter right here. I think it's a different chapter. Let me just take a look real quick. Okay, it's the same chapter. Okay. So basically what happens in this chapter is that Mary Poppins is telling the kids a story about when she was a baby. And this is coming to life while they're out the window. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, wait. Never mind. Sorry, my mistake. What happens is this dancing cow right here, they see them out the window. They see the cow out the window. And Mary Poppins recognizes the cow and that he brings her here to the house. What happens is the cow he tells the story of how the cow became so dancing. Now, what happens that when Mary Poppins was just a baby, her mother told her this story about a cow who danced, and a star fell on top of her horn. And the star had magical power to keep her dancing. The cow eventually went to the king, who was crossed by what happened. But the cow eventually explains he had to get the star off my horn to help me to stop dancing. So what happens is the cow makes a big giant jump like this and brings the star up to the sky, and that eventually makes her stop dancing. And eventually the star comes back. So every now and then she is compelled to dance because of that one story she remembers. She can't help but remember that story of her dancing. So she now just dances every now and then because it makes her happy. But she couldn't control herself. She couldn't stop dancing. But she loves to dance anyway. But there's also she had a motherly calf. She had a calf that she had to take care of. So now that the calf is all grown up, she can dance anytime she wants, I guess. But anyway, the whole point is that the calf needed her milk and needed her mother. Her dancing, she couldn't really do that for her. And that is that chapter, pretty much. Chapter 6, The Bad Thursday. This is where things really start to get dark here, so shield your eyes about what I'm about to tell you. Oh boy. Okay. So in this chapter, it literally starts with Michael saying, "Well, I'm going to be a little bad boy today." So he wakes up and decides to become a bad boy today, being very bad, pinching his. I'm just gonna give you a little idea of what he does. He pinches his two baby siblings, Barbara and John, and pinches them on their cheeks real hard. Yeah. He also kicks Miss Brill in the shins, saying how fat she is. Yeah, and more like that goes on throughout the entire chapter of this one. Until, hold on, here's him kicking her. Okay, so halfway through this chapter, after that whole incident, Mary Poppins thought it'd be a good idea to give him a compass. And they go around the world, different places. Now, this is one part of the story where Walt really wanted to make a part in the movie, but it did not happen. So as you can see, he gives him a magic compass that goes around the world. Now, there's a polar bear, a panda, a parrot, and a dolphin. They go to each of these worlds together for the compass, and they land on each one of them together. So in each chapter, you see them going through each one of them. In one chapter, like the polar bear, they go stay in an igloo and hang out there. And then in the panda world, they go and hang out there. In the pear trees, they go and look for eggs, and they hop around in there and look at the tree, and they get fruit from the trees. In the dolphins, they have a dolphin race, and the dolphins race, and Jane and Michael root for them as they go along. I don't remember how about the panda. Hold on with that one. But mostly that's what happens during these chapters. We shall be staying. Mary Poppins, amidst her taking a little trip and around the world, just looked enormous a moment. With a nonsense, the panda gave an enormous yawn, and Triplets in wild around the world with given... Okay, so it's just the panda, I guess. So, moving on, after this whole journey ends, Michael and Jane are all back home safely. Michael, on the other hand, wakes up in the middle of the night while they're sleeping and ponders if all this is real. Because again, Mary Poppins says that's never real. So he goes on to go beyond, become a little jerk again, and decides to steal Mary Poppins' compass. But once he opens it, everything starts to attack him at once. Every single little thing, the animals, everybody else, attack him as like a nightmare is happening through his head. It's all very scary-like. So unlike the adventure before where they had a magical journey around the world, everything's a magical nightmare around the world where they all come and attack Michael. And once they all come attack him, he screams for Mary Poppins' help. And that's where Mary Poppins comes in and stops everything from happening. And Mary Poppins is like, see what happens? See what happened? You stole my compass and now everything's wrong. So she was trying to make a point that you can't just steal and be bad. Some bad days are up and sometimes they're down. You see, there was going to be a song in this particular scene where Michael will have to learn that sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and he has to face the fact that he's not going to feel great every day. Doesn't mean you have to act so mean about it. Basically, Michael got upset because he had one bad day. He decided to go out on everybody else because of the bad day he felt like he had. So there's a song where my papa addresses that to him, where sometimes your bed's gonna feel up, right side up. So there's like a whole point about that sort of thing in this book here. If you want to know more about this, take a look at more Mary Poppins stuff as well. Moving on then. The Bird Woman, Chapter 7. The Bird Woman is pretty much the same in this chapter, only we don't go to the building or anything like that. What happens is that Mary Poppins gives them money, and she gives them to the Bird Lady. Mary Poppins teaches them about the Bird Lady and what she does. But in this one, they eventually give her money to the birds. They go up there and they help her out with the money and the food for the birds. They feed them and they give them he gives her money, toppings for bags, and she gives them bags and they feed the birds. And that's pretty much the whole chapter here. There is nothing with the bank or the father or anything like that. It's just them helping the bird lady feed the birds. That's pretty much the whole chapter here. None of that is in this book, pretty much. It's just them feeding the birds, pretty much. And here are the birds. Here's the bird lady, right here. Next is Miss Quarry. In this chapter, Chapter 8, in this book, we get to meet Miss Quarry and her two daughters who owned a candy store. This is only addressed in the Broadway version, where they meet Miss Quarry, and it's a candy store filled with laid treats and bakery that only Mary Poppins knows about. It's a secret area that only she knows, and that's where she gets all the bakery stuff for them. Now, there's one particular thing they get, and that is the stars. Now, the stars are very special. Jay and Michael both get star cookies from Miss Quarry, and what they plan on leaving them in the house. Now, we're not sure why. Jay and Michael's not sure why they have to leave them in the house, but there is a reason for them. Once they go to sleep, Mary Poppins and Miss Quarry and the sisters come out and they take their cookies and they take a ladder and they throw them into the sky. Yes, so the cookies are the stars in the sky. They're responsible for putting stars into the sky, which is very interesting. Now, I'm going to skip to the end here. There's like a little question they ponder about towards the end here. I'm just going to get to it real quick. They give something to the babies too, I believe. Hold on. Just get to it real quick. They only eat sugar in this one. Okay. So moving on, they have these star cookies that they throw into the sky. Here they are doing it right now. Here we go. Here are the cookies right here. What I want to know, she said, is this. Are the stars gold paper? Or is the gold paper stars there? Was on the reply to her question, and she did not expect one. She knew that only somebody very much wiser than Michael could give her the right answer. So, the cookies are wrapped in this gold paper, you see, and they're wondering if the stars came from the gold paper of cookies or the other way around. Nothing is for certain, I guess. Chapter 9, John and Barbara's story. So, in this story, we get to look inside John and Barbara, the two baby twins in this version. There's a bird that in this book. There's a bird that comes along and they have a chance to talk to this bird. Now, this bird in particular is called the mockingbird, I believe. or something like that. I'm not really sure which, but it's a bird. Let's just go with that. It's a bird of some sorts. But what happens is that the babies can only hear and see the bird. No one else can hear the bird and see the bird, only but them. So this is the thing that babies only develop when they're one. Because once they see the bird, they walk and see them. And they say that only they can see him. And once they grow two, they will not be able to remember him or see him anymore or hear him anymore. The only other person that was able to do that was Mary Poppins, and that she's special. In fact, the bird says it a lot in this chapter. Starly, that's his name. So Starly. So this bird's name is Starly. So this bird recalls that Mary Poppins is the only one who can see and hear him growing up as a baby to an adult. This bird is the sad thing about the bird is that he's all by himself and that he's very lonely. So a lot of times it's kind of great if somebody is able to stay and promise him that they can always listen and hear him and believe in him and always talk to him. But unfortunately, this is far from the truth, because once the babies grow up and they become 2 years old, they forget everything about the bird. They promise at the end they will, but unfortunately, that doesn't happen. And that's that story. Very interesting for John and Barbara here as characters. Now, if you remember, Willoughby, and now these two characters, if you know, Willoughby was a dog from the Broadway version, and also from the Willoughby is also addressed in Mary Poppins Returns, where he's a dog in that one with Miss Locke instead of Andrew in that one. Also, excuse me, John and Barbara are named after the two kids in the movie. The older boy is named John, and the little girl is named Barbara. Wait, no, it's not. Sorry, my mistake. Barbara's not in that movie, but there is a name that she does end up getting very soon too. So I'll get to that too. But Barbara is going to be mentioned, I think, at some point in the books, but she's unfortunately not in the movies at all at this point. But there will be another character we'll get to eventually that will share the same name as that girl. I'm mixing them up. I'm sorry. But anyway, John is definitely revived in the Mary Poppins Returns. Instead of being George Banks's kid, it is Michael Banks's kid. So he's his oldest son. And then we have George, who is the younger son. Chapter 10, The Full Moon. All day long, Mary Poppins had been a hurry. When she was a hurry, she was always cross. Everything Jane did was bad. Everything Michael did was worse. She even snapped at the twins. Jane and Michael kept out of her way much as possible, for they knew that there was times when it was better not to be seen or heard by Mary Poppins. "I wish you were invisible," said Michael, when Mary Poppins had told him that the very sight of him was more than any self-respecting person could be expected to stand. "We shall be," said Jane. "If we go behind the sofa, we can count the money in our money boxes, and she may be better after she had her supper." So they did that sequence, and 4 pennies, that's Teplin, and their halfpenny and their 3rd penny bit, said Jane, counting them up quickly. 4 pennies and 3 francs, and that's all, sighed Michael, putting his money in the little harp. "That'll be nicely for the poor box," said Mary Poppins, looking over to the arm of the sofa, and snuffed. "Oh, no," said Michael respectfully. "It's for herself I'm saving." "Huh, for one of those, I suppose," said Mary Poppins sillily. No, for an elephant. A private one for myself. Like Lizzie at the zoo. I could take you for a ride, then, said Michael, halfway looking and halfway not looking at her. See? How she would take it. Said Mary Poppins. Okay, now I remember what this one's all about. Okay, so, at night, this happens again at night. So when the children go to sleep, Jay and Michael, they wake up at night when Mary Poppins is putting some magic around the house, and they find that when they go to the zoo, all the animals are the contestants. The animals are the ones, it's all opposites. The humans are trapped inside the cage, including Emerald Boom, who is actually an animal in this exhibit in the zoo, which is pretty funny. But anyway, the whole point is in this book, in this chapter, which was going to be a part in the movie, but it never happened, is that all the animals are working in the zoo, and all the humans are all caged up like animals. So a funny little chapter right here. Now, some of the people, like the policeman, Emerald Boom, and Miss Locke, are all just townspeople characters that are just minor side characters to the plot of this book. As you can see here. And during a full moon, this is when this happens. They're all animals. And sometimes they act like animals, too. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we get towards the end of the chapter where we find Mary Poppins at the reptile area, where the snakes are making a birthday party for her. It's her birthday, actually. And somehow, okay, so this is a little weird. So, apparently, Mary Poppins has a half-cousin who is a snake in this version. So, she is apparently part snake. Yeah, don't question it, okay? So, here in this chapter, we meet, the snake, the cobra snake, who is Mary Poppins' half-cousin. Removed. Somehow. So we got to see her half-cousin, who's a snake. And they get to celebrate her birthday for her in the reptile house. And that's basically the whole chapter from there. They do a little dance at the end and all that stuff. Christmas shopping. Now, in this particular chapter, it's not much to say, but in this chapter, heaven exists. Yeah. So in this chapter, it's kind of like Santa Claus, I guess you could say. In this version, just like the bakery, the Gene and Michael Banks and Mary Poppins go to a secret shopping area for them. It's a special mall where all the poor people come and they get gifts from whatever. You could say this is Santa Claus doing this, but it's not revealed to any of us. You could say Mary Poppins is friends with Santa Claus, I guess you could say. We never get to hear much about him, though. It's just as Father Christmas in this chapter. So we don't get to see much of him. Just the fact that Mary Poppins helps him in a very special way. She gives gifts in this mall to poor kids. Especially this one little girl who has dancing shoes on. Eventually, when she's happy, she floats up and goes up to the sky. It's not addressed that it's heaven, but we could address that maybe it could be. And that's that chapter from there. You can see her going up to the sky here. And now we come to the last chapter of the book, the saddest chapter of the book, the West Wind. This is the chapter where unfortunately Mary Poppins leaves in this book. Excuse me. It's that time for her to leave. Yes. So unlike the Disney version, she every time the wind changes, she has to leave. But then she comes back to help the Banks again in the next few books later. So again, she leaves and then she comes back. So, but this particular chapter is sad because what happens is Mary Poppins just leaves without a word or anything. She just leaves and doesn't say goodbye to Jan and Michael. She just leaves, and she leaves behind. Now, it gets sadder later on in the fewer chapters of the books, but let me just continue here. Excuse me. I just continue here. What happens here is that she leaves without a word, leaving her compass behind for Michael to keep. And Michael is so touched by that when they see her leaving up in the sky in the window, they cry with tears, saying goodbye to her. Now, this isn't anything, but I'm just saying that I think it's sad because he's so touched and moved by that she gave her the compass that's what happens. She just leaves and that's it. So that's the end of the first book of Mary Poppins. You can see them waving goodbye there. Here's her leaving. Yeah, and here's a note. And hold on. There's like a little thing here. So in the compass, Mary Poppins gives them a little gift inside. The picture of them inside. See? Oh, well, we'll see this more in the other chapter, but there is another baby that comes along too. Faces. There is a letter. Michael, are you crying? Jane asked. He twisted his head and turned to smile at her. Oh, no, I'm not, he said. It is only my eyes. She pushed him gently towards his bed, and as he got... Oh, here we go. Sorry. Dear Jane, Michael had the compass, so the picture is for you. See, Mary Poppins. Now, it's very similar. There's a similar note that they gave them, that she gives them towards the end of this book. Very similar. I think it happens in the other chapters later on. But basically, in the movie, in the Bible version, there's like this part where they say, Dear Jane and Michael, keep playing the games, or Gua Mary Poppins. Now, that was a certain note in the book that she left in the book. Now, I'm not sure which part it's in, but there is a part where she does address that particular note in the book. So, there's a part where it's like addressed that she'll come back one day. Next, we got Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins comes back. Chapter 1, The Kite. Now, this is just like the first movie. In the Mary Poppins Returns. In the beginning of this book, Mary Poppins comes in with a kite. One day, Jane and Mike, basically, just like I said, in every beginning of the book, it's always in disarray. The house and everything. Sometimes Winifred is not sure why Mary Poppins leaves all the time. It's kind of strange, to be honest. But anyway, she comes back. She's a little crossed and surprised to see Mary Poppins come back and return. But anyway, the whole point is that she comes back from a kite. Jane and Michael are flying a kite one day. This is probably what Let's Fly a Kite came from. But anyway, and made different things like that, like the bride version where she comes back on the kite and Mary Poppins Returns. But anyway, what happens in this story is that they reel in the kite, they're flying it. A man helps them, a man, just a random man of some sorts. We don't really know much about him. But he's I never flew a kite before, and then the kids try to let them help him. Because he hasn't flown a kite since he was a boy, and he was very touched that they flew a kite and all that stuff. He's like in the bride version where he helps out. So, as he's helping them, they reel it in, and Mary Poppins comes back on the kite. Back in their lives again. Basically, that's what the whole chapter is all about here. You can see Mrs. Banks is very upset about what's going on. Because in this version, the father is very strict in this one too. So he leaves in a huff in this version as well. In this version, the kids are very upset too. They John and Bob are older in this one, and they're 3 or 2, I guess. And look, they're fighting each other. They're stealing each other's toys. It's not great. Anyway, moving on. Chapter 2. I forgot to mention in this version, there is a certain character in this version, named, I forgot his name, he is Robinson, okay. Robert's, is that his name? I'm not sure. Robinson Ive, okay. Robinson Ive is a maid in the story too. He is a helper that helps out every now and then too. So in these books, he mostly falls asleep sometimes. He's in the Bride version too, where he sings very deeply. So in this version, this is where he basically takes a nap, but sometimes he wakes up and he helps out. Robinson Ive is basically another maid that helps out around the place, around Miss Brill. In this version, the other woman does not exist, I think, I don't think she exists in this version. It's just her and Robinson Ive, basically. Anyway, moving on. Miss Andrews' Lark. It was Saturday afternoon in the hall of number 17 Cherry Tree Lane. Mr. Banks was busy typing the Bible and telling Miss Banks what the weather was going to do. North wind, average temperature, liking the sight, he said. The further outlook settling in the hello, and that's what. He broke off, bumbling and jumping, thumping noise sounds overhead. Around the bend in the suitcase, Michael appeared looking very bad-tempered and sarky, but having down behind him with a twin each other arm. Take Mary Poppins, pushing her in the knees into the back, and sat with her sharp thin from one stair to the next. Jean followed, carrying the hats. Well, began to half done. Down you go, please, Mary Poppins was saying truthfully. Mr. Banks turned from the battlement and looked up as they appeared. Well, what's the matter with you? He demanded. I don't want to go for a walk. I want to play with my new engine, said Michael, grumbling as Mary Poppins' knees jerked him on the stair lower. Nonsense, darling, said Miss Banks. Of course you do. Walking makes such long, strong legs. But I like short legs best, grumbling Michael, stumbling heaving down another stair. When I was a little boy, said Mr. Banks, I love going for walks. I used to walk for my gardeners down second lap post and back every day. I never gumbled. Michael stood still on his stair and looked doubtful at Mr. Banks. Where were you ever a little boy? He said, very surprised. Mr. Banks seemed quite hurt. Of course I was a sweet little boy with long yellow curls, and vest breeches, and buttoned-up boots. I can hardly believe it, said Michael, hurrying down the stairs as his own ankle stand up, and Mr. Banks simply could not imagine his father as a little boy. Yeah, as you can see, he was surprised by that. And we'll get into more about his backstory later on in this book, about all that. Oh, I think I see what this chapter is all about now. Okay, so in this chapter, we find out that Mr. Banks had a nanny himself, just like in the Bride version. He had a nanny named Miss Andrew, who was a mean and ruthless nanny who did not appreciate. She was known as the Holy Terror. So, similar to the movie, and similar to the Broadway version, we find that Miss Andrew has a bird that's a lock. Mary Poppins eventually sends it free. Miss Andrew gets angry at her, and eventually Mary Poppins, with a singing little song and a ditty, she traps her inside a cage, a bird cage, and she eventually flies away with other birds, leaving her away in the dust. So, in this version, she comes back. She comes back to help out with the kids. But Mary Poppins tells her, "No, I'm the new one running here." And she gets angry at her, saying that she's too young to rule, and that the children need strict punishments. But unfortunately, she never comes back to do that. She tries to give them Brainstorm and Trinkle, which is the same thing in this book, but we'll get to what Mary Poppins does to them later, because that's in a later book in this one. But I'll explain later about that one. But basically, what you need to know about Andrew is that she is evil and a ruthless nanny that used to be a nanny for Mr. Banks. And that's why he is the way he is today. Basically. That's what happens in this book, basically. This chapter. This is what Miss Andrew looks like. Scary, right? Here's her in the bird cage. Here's them celebrating. Next chapter is Bad Wednesday. So, just like Michael, Jane has a separate day of her own when she is a bad girl, and she gets angry and crossed. But there's a reason why she gets bad and crossed. Unlike Michael, she is tired of being the oldest, and she's tired of always being responsible for the younger kids. So one day she decides, I'm not going to take care of them anymore. She is outraged. She decided to pass the time a little bit after Mary Poppins leaves and jumps into a dish bowl, which is what this is right here. The dish bowl, basically, she meets two kids, twins, little boy, these kids right here in the dish bowl, and she befriends them as they go along, wandering around, playing together. Jane feels like, man, this is great, until you get to the ending, where she is confronted by their father. The father insists that she stays forever here. Jane is like, no, I didn't want to, live here. It's great and all that. I want to stay here and with no responsibilities and all, but I'm not sure if I want to. She wants to come back. She learns her lesson that this is not really the best place in the world to stay. Their father is very strict, and she really wants them to stay. Not only that, he forces her to marry one of the kids here. And there's another thing like that. Eventually, Jane is in a very stucky spot, and she learns her lesson by calling out to Mary Poppins, saying, "Help me, help me." Eventually, Mary Poppins comes to her rescue, and they're all back home safely and sound. Jane learns her lesson that she needs to be responsible for her siblings, and that there is no way out of it sometimes. And after she gets out of the Dust Bowl, it's obviously, broken. As the one man was trying to get out, he breaks it, leaving the Dust Bowl very, very broken and cracked. So, this is where the inspiration of the Dust Bowl comes in, from the Mary Poppins Returns. Now, unlike the movie, where it's all animals, it's humans. And in this version, there is a boy named George in this one. I think that's where they got the idea of making the character named George in this one. But anyway, what you need to know is that the father is very strict in this one, and he kept Jane there. And what happens is the dust bowl breaks, and Mary Poppins has to go to her cousin to fix it, Topsy, which we'll meet in the next chapter later. But, like, that's what you didn't know what happened in this one. And I guess the animals came from the many other chapters that came before, with the zoo and many others. And you'll see that there's more animals in this one than you think. So there's also other chapters like that too, which we'll see. Also, another thing we don't see in the chapters is that Miss Emerald Boom has a wife, Miss Boom, who doesn't really particularly appear all too much in these books, but she is a relevant character around beside him. He has, unlike the movie, Emerald Boom does not have an assistant to help him. Instead, he has his wife to help him. But he doesn't really do much. He doesn't really load the cannons or anything. She just stands there and becomes a supporting wife for Emerald Boom. Now, after the end of these books, I will look deeper into the characters. But that's the basics of the books. I'm just looking through. Here's the king and the father and the kids here. She's betrothed to one of them. Oh, they are triplets. Okay, they are triplets, as they can see. Here's Mary Poppins trying to get Jane back. And now it's broken, as you can see somewhere. Chapter 4, Topsy-Turvy. Now, in this chapter, we find that it's Topsy. But unlike the movie where she's a woman, in this version, it's a couple. As you can see, Mr. Topsy, or Mr. Turvy, I think his name is. Mr. Turvy is a cousin of Mary Poppins. He's a man, unlike the Disney version where she's a woman. But anyway, it's a man instead, and it's pretty much the same thing. Every Wednesday or so or whatever, cousin Arthur is his name, I guess. Arthur Turvy, I guess. Let me see what it'll tell me in the chapter here. Okay, every second Monday of the month, Mr. Turvy's house goes upside down instead of right side up, just like in the movie, pretty much. The only difference is that in this book, he ends up meeting a wife. Now, this is Turvy, which we'll meet later on before this happens. She actually ends up following the children into the house. Now, she's like a neighbor to Turvy, Mr. Turvy, and eventually he meets her, and they end up falling in love, and they end up building a big connection with each other after what happened with this particular story and everything, with them turning upside down and everything. They end up falling in love and getting married shortly after the story is over. So, after this moment, they get married, and they decide to become together in the house together. Now, we don't know what happens after this moment, but Miss Turvy and Mr. Turvy, I believe they end up having a daughter named Topsy one day. So maybe that's the inspiration for what happened in the movie later on in Mary Poppins Returns. I'm guessing, but I don't know for sure. But I'm guessing that's why she's twice removed, because she was once because Mary Poppins was once a cousin to was cousin to this once Mr. Turvy, and now she is, Maybe one day I'll make a video about Mary Poppins' family tree and what we know so far, according to these books. That's a separate episode we'll talk about later on. In terms of relation, I'll just tell you each time in between, because it's really hard to go through all the single one of them right now, but I guess overall I will tell you. Here's Turvy, tripping over. Here they are upside down. Now, this is a very prominent thing in the book where she's upside down. She thinks differently from right side up. Like blood working from the inside of the earth and the brain. Here's them dancing. Chapter 5, the new one. Now, this is the book where the new baby comes in, where she's born for the very first time. And for a while, she can she can see and hear the bird too. When she turns 2, she can't hear it anymore. So we eventually meet the new baby. Her name is, hold on, I find it right here. Annabelle, I think her name is. Yeah, Annabelle is the new baby of the group. And she is the little girl in Mary Poppins Returns, which we meet, who is the second oldest of Michael's children. There you go. Mary Poppins helps with the birth, too. And during this book, Annabelle's able to tell us how she was born and what it was like for her. And the Starling he's able to tell all that to the Starling, too. So during this particular book, she is telling everyone else about this. But until she grows up, she can't recall anything about it. Robinson Ives story. In this story, Robinson Ives has a love interest. So in this one, we get to hear about what his love interest is all about and everything. It's not much to say, but it's pretty much just that. That's what the story is. Robinson Ives is basically in love with someone, and that's the whole story from here, I think. Okay. Also in the story, we find a story called The King, there is a halfway through the story where Mary Poppins talks about different stories in the middle of the books. In this one, there's a short story called The Cat Stared at the King. You can find that short on YouTube or in the Mary Poppins DVD section. They made a short about this particular story where the king wants to be wise and everything, but he can't be wise. So instead, he has a white cat that when you stare into his eyes, he can see how wise you truly are inside. And that's the whole story from there. I don't want to give everything spoilers away, so if you want to guys go check it out yourself. It's on YouTube and everything, and you want to go see what the story is all about. But anyway, that's basically the story from there. Chapter 7, The Evening Out. Just see, I'll clear my throat a little. I think, now I could be wrong what the story is entailing, but I think I know what this chapter is all about. But okay, so this is the chapter where all the toys come to life. Now, once again, Mike, Jay, and Michael are waking up in the middle of the night, and they find that all their animals come to life, and they sneak out, and they follow them to a party where they all dance, and they have a good time, and they meet up with the toys, and they go and have fun. Now, we know that in the Broadway version, the toys come to life, and they attack them, but unlike that one, it doesn't happen here. Instead, they just have a frolic, really good time. But there are times where Mary Poppins will take magic and then discipline the children. There are times where they will do that, like in the last one with Bad Tuesday. That's where Michael gets punished for his nightmare, where he gets scared and runs off. We got Jane with her punishment, almost getting or stealing her responsibility and getting to stay there almost entirely. And there's another chapter that happens too, but we'll get into that one as well. where it happens to Michael. There's dancing toy goats, I guess. They dance around. They have a good time. I think. Hold on. Suddenly I'm forgetting what this story's all about. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. This is not about the toys. What? No pudding? Said Michael, as Mary Poppins, her armful in mugs and knives, began to lay on the table for nursery tea. She turned and looked at him forcefully, the she sharped with his evening out. So you will eat bread and butter and strawberry jam to be thankful. There's many a new little boy. Would you be glad to have him? I'm not, grumbled Michael. I want rice pudding with honey in it. You want. You're always wanting. If it's not, is that. If it's not, it's that the other. You'll ask for the moon next. He put his hands... Oh, okay. Okay, so this is not the toys. Sorry, that's a different chapter. But in this one, they go into their dreams, Michael and Jane. They go to sleep, and their night out, they end up, just like in Mary Poppins Returns, they end up in a place where it's all animals, and they perform a show for them. They dance, they sing, they have stars. Michael eventually gets the moon at some point, towards the end. Just like Mary Poppins says, you won't ask for the moon as well. So, towards the end, Michael is able to keep the moon inside his pocket for a while during the show. But once he wakes up, the moon is gone. Completely. So that's the night out right there. It's a magical chapter. It's just like the movie pretty much. Only except for the fact that he has the moon in his hand. And we also get to have a special chapter of different animals. One of them is a dragon who is very sad and droopy and down, and talks about his whole story and everything, but you don't need to know anything about that, just that he's sad all the time. Next, and then the last chapter is balloons. Basically, in this chapter, just like in the movie, Mary Poppins goes to a lady where they give each of the kids balloons, and they all have their names on them too, including Mary Poppins. Eventually, they all float around and go up and up to the balloons, until at the end, Mary Poppins uses her balloon to fly very high. Well, actually, she doesn't have a balloon of her very own. She uses her umbrella, but she flies so high that the children can't reach her anymore. They can't get up to her, they can't follow her or anything. She goes up to the sky and leaves them immediately without a word. So it scares them a whole lot when Mary Poppins leaves them like this, where she goes high into the sky, never to be seen again. And then the kids have to find their way to get down. And that's that. That's Mary Poppins Comes Back. Here's the lady with the balloons. Let me turn back to that real quick. Guess we missed it. Here are all the people. Now, animals. All the people in this book all have balloons. Now, Mary Poppins also has a sun god that she dances with at the very end too. Now, we're not really sure if she's a god or not, but a lot of times that is presented to us into the story a little bit as well, suggesting that she could be. Now, there's a little bit of godness in here. There's a goddess of sun who is dancing with her right now as well. Gives her a little kiss, and then they wake up. How where the balloon lady is. Here's the children with their balloon names. And John and Barbara have their own balloons. I don't think Annabelle goes with them, but whatever. Here's the lady with the balloons. And here's everybody with their balloons. I guess Mary Poppins doesn't leave yet. I thought she did, maybe not. Oh, okay. Maybe not. I could be wrong. And here's the chimney sweep, who is also in here as well, having his own balloon as well. He kind of looks black-faced in this one too. That's probably another reason why they didn't want to like talk about him in the movies either. 'Cause he was a little racist in that one. You see, Playtesters described him as a black man. Almost something like a black racist man. So, there's that, too. Chapter 9, Nivy Bell. Don't believe it will ever stop, ever. Jane put down her copy of Robinson Crusoe and glanced gloomily out of the window. The snow fell slightly and drifted down. The large snowflakes covered the... Okay, so she doesn't leave yet. But in this book in particular, Mary Poppins brings all the books to life. And Mary Poppins and Jane is able to meet Robinson Crusoe himself for the books. So, in this chapter, all the books come to life. All their books come to life, and all the characters pop out, and they dance with them and whatever. That's what that chapter's all about. I guess Mary Poppins doesn't leave yet, but we will get to it when it comes, I guess. Here's some of the books that come to life. Here's a few others. Okay, so also in this book, there is another chapter where it's like Noah's Ark. And the Noah's Ark toys come to life as well. So Michael has this toy Noah's Ark playset. And they turn small and all the toys come to life. They're able to go into the Ark, fly around. Mary Poppins is there with them, and the animals come to life. The figures inside the boat come to life. Like these like two women in there. They carry the Ark, and they are controlling the Ark, and they flow up. And they're all toys, and they look like toys, and they're wooden-like, but they are real people at the same time. And that's also this chapter. Okay, the last chapter is the merry-go-round. This is where this happens. So, remember the chapter of the chalkboard chalk? Well, that comes back in this chapter, where the children go. This time, the children go to the merry-go-round, and they sit down. They sit and they ride the merry-go-round, same as usual. Bert is there, giving Mary Poppins some love. Now, about Mary Poppins and Bert, about their love. Now, unlike Playtesters, she did not want to show any love around them. It is true they are in love with each other, but Playtesters wanted to keep that secret from everyone else. So, unlike the movie, Mary Poppins shows affection to Bert, but it's not like they're in love or anything. It's just more like flirting, and she blushes and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like exactly that they're in love or anything, just that there's a bunch of flirting going on. So you can plant the seeds that they are in love, but they're not quite in love. Everyone just like to show that she's in love. She like to say that she is in love, but she is. It's complicated. So she gets onto the carousel. They all get on the carousel, all the children and everybody else. She goes on the horse, and just like in the movie, she flies off with the horse in tow. Her horse comes off, and the carousel moves very fast and quick. Run around, until the horse bounces off and goes straight up to the sky. Mary Poppins is never to be seen again. The children call out to her like, "Hey, come back, Mary Poppins!" But she can never hear them. She leaves, leaving them behind once again. Yeah, she leaves in such a quickness that it's hard for the children to even breathe when she leaves. So there you go. And that's Mary Poppins Returns. Comes back, or whatever you want to call it. And here's the locket hatch. So, in this particular book, she says she'll leave when the rope breaks. So here, as you can see, during the carousel, the children are like, what does that even mean? So as you can see, when she leaves, a rope breaks and they're able to keep it. And that's where the locket is. So later on in the book, I don't think we're going to see it in here, but in the book, Mary Poppins makes a special locket for the children later on to give to a friend of hers. So later on, we find out that she makes that for them, and she gives it to them later on at the end of the story. At the end of the movie, she gives them this locket that looks like this, with the picture inside, like in the beginning of the book, with the children inside. So they get to keep that. The children are so touched by it that they are also very crying when Mary Poppins leaves too. So every now and then she leaves little seeds saying that she'll leave one day and come back, and then there's one day where she's going to leave and not come back. But we'll get to that. Here's the carousel spinning. Here's them leaving with a star in the sky. Now the next one is called Mary Poppins opens the door. Here are the children together. Chapter 1, the 15th of November. It was one of those black, chilly mornings that remind you winter was coming. Cherry Tree Lane was quiet and still, the mud shined up. So just like in the Disney version, like I said, every single book like this, it starts with them with a disarray. So we'll skip that part, now we know all that. We're going to start the part where Mary Poppins comes back. If I can find it for you guys real quick. Swirling red, white, and blue, sparks stars. Okay, so it's the 4th of July, and everybody's having a good time with the stars and everything. Sparks flew and everything else. So there's like a light spark guy who lights all the fireworks. And that's where the inspiration of Jack comes in, I think, is the light guy. So once he sparks everything in the sky, Mary Poppins comes back as like a firework. And she shoots up like a firecracker into the sky and comes down to see them once again. In fact, she even says, "Shoot up like a firecracker? Insane!" Chapter 2. Miss Twig's Wishes. So, Mary Poppins goes to his other cousin's house to get a fable. This cousin is Mr. Twiggly, who is a toy maker and makes special toys for Mary Poppins. Now, it sings different songs. Mary Poppins' favorite song is Pop Goes the Weasel. So, for example, a toy plays that song for her on a music box. So the music box comes to life, and the toys come to life, and Mary Poppins and the children are able to dance around on their own little song, able to sing to every single music note on their music boxes. Now, it mentions what every child likes, and what Michael likes, what Jane likes in each of the stories as their favorite songs, but I don't know if I'm going into detail about all of that. Let me just see if I can find them real quick about who is who. I guess one was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. London Bridge is Falling Down is Michael's favorite, I guess. And there you go. Here is Mr. Twiggly, right here. And basically, he grants wishes, too. Basically, the children grant a wish from them, and he's able to grant them a wish desire. So, there's also that going on as well. Oh, so, actually, okay, here you go, I'm sorry. So, this chapter is basically about the king seeing into the cat. The other one's about a different chapter about a king. Let's go back to that chapter real quick. What that one's about. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, actually, in the Robinson Eye story, instead of the king looking into the cat, like I said before, in that story, he's meeting a certain character named who is a poor guy. I forgot his name, but he's a poor guy. The Dusky Prince, I think his name is. Wait, that's a different story too. Oh man, I get these two mixed up a lot because they're all about kings. Hold on, let's go back to that story, please. Yeah, hold on. Let me just read that story quick for you guys, real quick. Robinson Ives story. Here we go. Step along, please, said Mary Poppins, pushing the twins at the own end of the Annabelle on the others towards her favorite seat in the park. It was green one and quite near the lake. And again, okay, we're just going to skip to the story here a little bit. Then the queen had an idea. Let us, she said, the Lord hide quality over to the ward to the professor, who can teach the king a little wisdom. And if at the end of the month he has no succeeded at the head, shall we cut it off the spark? And the king's crowded. So I think this is it. You can correct me if I'm wrong later on, but basically the story is about rags to riches. The rag man right here, that's Robinson Ive actually, teaches the king some wisdom by teaching him songs and other things like that. So in this version, he is the rags. No one can teach the king any wisdom. He is basically not smart at all, and he hadn't learned any proper education before. So according to the story here, Robinson Ive is another character in the story who becomes a rags to riches, where he's a poor man who helps the king to teach him wisdom. So that's that chapter, I think. The other chapter is about the king that looks into the cat. So I'm sorry if we got that confused with each other before. And also, they explain most of these stories in Mary Poppins Returns, where Mary Poppins, the cover is not the book, where Mary Poppins sings that with Jack about different stories that Mary Poppins has told throughout the many different books. It's all summarized together in that one song. The Marble Boy. In this chapter, Jane and Michael befriend a certain boy that's a statue who lives in a certain part of the park. The statue in question is this boy named Nelius, who is basically like in the Broadway version. Nelius is this little boy, unlike the Broadway version where he's a man. In this movie, in this particular version, he is a boy with a dolphin. Nelius is a statue that lives on top of the park with a statue of a dolphin. The kids befriend him once Mary Poppins brings him to life. Basically, they play with him all day long until he has to leave. He tells that his parents belong somewhere else in the beach, where they are statues too, and they are separated from each other. Now, they go into more detail about this Marble Boy later on. Basically, what you need to know about him is that he's a statue, and that he has a family that was separated from each other. One day he'll reminisce about going there one day, but for now, he can only be happy if Mary Poppins makes him come to life once again. So basically, he goes back to being a statue, and Jane and Michael think otherwise. He's briefly mentioned in the Broadway version as well, as Nelius dances around and becomes a friend of theirs as well. And here's Nelius. In this version, he's also reading the book along Robinson Crusoe. You see, Jane has a fondness for Robinson Crusoe. She's still reading it as time goes on, and Nelius ends up taking it from her. Chapter 5, Peppermint Horses. Okay, so in this chapter, Mary Poppins goes to a lady that gives all the children peppermint. But unlike usual peppermint, they turn into horses, and they gallop around, and they take the children on a ride of wonder. They magically ride around on these peppermint horses, along with Mary Poppins and the other children. And that's basically the whole the chapter. They run around, they race around, saying hello to everyone that comes across their way. The Miss Locke, Emerald Boom, and all those people as well. Here are the peppermint horses. So towards the end of the chapter, the peppermint horses, like poppy horses, they all gallop around like canes like that. And once they're all done with them, peppermint candy canes fly away with the women as they go off and find other children to help and ride. Jay and Michael does this with all their sleep. So they wake up to find that all their candy canes are gone, and they all fly away with this woman, as you can see. High Tide. High Tide, another chapter of the book where Jay and Michael, their house turns into an ocean. And they go swimming down to the floor where they find Emerald Boone and many others and their wife dancing around with fish people. All different kinds of fishes and stuff and all different kinds of things. This is the part where Bobbing Along comes in. Now, in Men on the Broomsticks, there's a part where the children go under the sea with the witch and Mr. Brown with their bed. So a similar thing happens here. the children travel under the sea where they meet certain fishes and they dance. Just like in Bed on the Broomsticks. So that's the inspiration for that one. You see, a lot of the stories that were not used in Mary Poppins got to be used in Bed Knobs and Broomsticks in the movie. So if you're wondering where that inspiration came from, part of it came from this book. Now there is a Bed Knobs and Broomsticks book based on the story, but we'll get to that one when we get a chance. That's a whole other that's a whole other video from another day. So moving on, that's what High Tide's all about. And also, there's a favorite part I like, where at the end they go tilly pum pum pum, which is part of the story as well. You see, during the dancing and singing that they're doing in the high tide and underwater, they're singing and dancing. Yeah, so here, as you can see, Pelly turns a bit of a hypocrite. As you can see, she is basically making up nonsense words in this book right here. And she says that she doesn't want nonsense words in her movie. She doesn't get it. She just doesn't get it. Another thing about Pelly Travis is that this is the first time ever where her book is presented as a movie. No one's ever done this before. So her hearing this from Walt Disney was kind of unnatural. He's saying something that no one's ever done before. So in a way, you could see why she was a little crossed by it too. She never seen anything like this movie before, where someone could just take a movie or a book and change it into something and make it into a live action movie, no less. So for this to be a movie is very interesting to her. In a way, that's another reason why she couldn't make up her mind. Chapter 17. Happily ever ever. 'Twas the last day of the old year. Upstairs in the nursery, Jane and Michael performed when noticed they underdressed when Mary Poppins sat to the work. It was almost as good as watching a quartet. She moved along the row of children with their... Okay, so this is the chapter where the books come to life. And as you can see, Michael is dancing with Friday here from Robinson Crusoe. And, well, that part's racist too, as you can see. Because look at the Indian formation here. Yikes. Here's some crumpets here. The other door. Okay, this is the last chapter, I think. Before I move on, let me just see if this is the last chapter. Here's the map. Hold on. Sparks flying when she leaves. Okay, so, just a note, in this chapter, this is officially the timeline where Mary Poppins leaves. The other books after this takes place after she leaves. So these books take place in the middle of Mary Poppins. In the middle of Mary Poppins opens in the other door. So this is like the ending, but we're gonna get into more stories about these in the middle later on. So these are like midquels, as you can see. At the end of the book, Mary Poppins is on her merry way, showing everyone the swings and everything. There's like a part where Annabelle loves the swings, and Annabelle rides and swings. It's like she's flying in midair, and she actually is. And Mary Poppins makes her fly in midair. There's actually a cover of that too. So towards the end of the book, we see Mary Poppins, the others, and all the past characters they met along the way. Like, Mr. Twiggly, Uncle Albert. They have met almost everybody here. You know, they're all here. They're all here. She meets every single character along the way until Mary Poppins leads the kids into a window where they can't see or hear her. They can only see her face out the window. They're calling out to her, but she can't hear them. She goes out to the door, and she goes out the other end where that's our story ends. You see, at the beginning of the movie, she says to them, book at the end, she says to them, I will leave when the door opens. And eventually, yes, the door opens and she leaves, leaving the children screaming at the window, helplessly asking her to come back. But she never does. Unfortunately, it's the last time the children ever see Mary Poppins. It's the sad part where she leaves unexpectedly towards a window. Anyway, at the very end of the book, there is one last scene when we know for certain that the children are going to be safe, because we hear this. One day, the father comes back and exclaims, I'm going to be there for the children. He comes back and says, Winifred, my dearest love, I think you better come and dance with me. And Winifred's like, I thought you never asked. And they dance off screen. And Mr. Banks comes back being so happy all of a sudden. I guess because of the fact that Miss Andrews is no longer in his life anymore. Because of that, he's able to dance around, be happy, and able to become a father for his children. And able to dance and become a good husband to his wife, too. So once the father realizes what he has done, and now that he's able to, come back into the children's life, Mary Poppins knows that it's time for her to go. Help other children in her life. So she goes off, leaves the children, and leaves. And that's a story. We hear this in the last ending of the Broadway version. Now we're going into Mary Poppins in the Park, where all these stories are taking place. Like I said, in the middle of Mary Poppins opens another door. Every goose is a swan. Okay, so before I move on, in all of these chapters, the Mary Poppins has a big feud with the park keeper here. Park keeper is very strict, and Mary Poppins, they get into a fight countless times in the story. I can't really explain why. You have to read to find out for yourself. But basically, they don't get along very well with each other, basically. But basically, in this chapter, Mary Poppins is making her own story of the ugly duckling, where instead of a baby swan, it's a goose who dreams of becoming beautiful. She learns that every goose is beautiful in her own special way. In a way, she's like a swan too. There is another goose who is in love with a gander, who is in love with some other gander, but she wishes that she can follow with him instead of her. Eventually, at the end, the gander finds out how beautiful she is, and ends up dating her instead of the other, and they're beautiful and they hang out together. Basically, that's her version of the ugly duckling in the story. Also in this chapter, it basically tells the story of what they pretend to be. In this story, the goose pretends to be something she's not. She pretends to be a swan. So in this chapter, everybody pretends to be something they're not. Michael pretends to be he's a hunter, a star-class hunter, hunting for special animals and such things like that. The park keeper pretends that he is a winter explorer out in the Alps. And Jane pretends that she's Pocahontas. Basically, it's a story about people pretending there's something that they're not, and how fun it is. Also, the fact that you gotta be true to yourself as well. Faithful friends. Mary Poppins pretends to be herself, and only herself. As usual. Chapter 2, Faithful Friends. Faster, please, said Mary Poppins, tapping on the glass temple with the break of her parrot handle umbrella. Jan Michael had spent the morning at Butler's shop, at the dentist, and because it was late as a great trait, and they are taking a taxi home. The taxi man stared straight before him and gave her a shake. If I go any faster, he said, I'll make me late for my dinner. Why? Demanded Jane through the window. It was strict and such a thing, said Shirley quickly. The taxi man drove to the early and he would arrive. Why? Echoed the taxi man, keeping his eye on the wheel. Never, that's why. If I go any faster, I will missing it's a plain enough. Will make my late dinner me. Oh dear, he explained as he put on the brakes. Red again, I see. He turned and put his head down through the window. His bowling eyes dropped in whiskers, made him look like a seal. There's always trouble at these Elling singles, he waved in the hand of the street of the cars all waited for the lights to change. And now it was Michael who asked him, why? Don't you know nothing? The taximan cried. It's because of the chap on duty. He pointed to the single box where the handled figure was head, and his hand was glancing to the distance. Abused-minded it was always staring at the mobbing, and if time forgets the lights, I've known them stay red for a whole morning. If it's going to be like that today, I'll never get me dinner forgot and swinged on you. He looked at the Michael hopefully. No, or yet chocolate drops. Jane smiled and shook his head. Taxi man sighed desperately. Nobody thinks of nobody these days. I'm thinking of someone, said Mary Poppins, and she looked stern and despairing to him and turned away. They're green, he cried, as he looked at the lights and humming nervously to the wheel and drove along Park Avenue as through the pause wolves bump, 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 rattle, rattle. The three of them bounced in the seats. Sit up straight, said Mary Poppins, sitting in the corner of her and a couple of Jack in the boxes. No, I'm not, said Michael, gasping up and feel like one of the bouncing shaking. He grabbed quickly and bit a tongue and left the sequence laugh unfinished, for the taxi had stopped with an unfavorable jerk and filled floor. Mary Poppins sat Jane in a muffling voice. I think you're sitting on me. My foot. It's caught something. I thank you, Michael, said Mary Poppins. Take it out of my hat. Sing sides, and the parrot's umbrella sat on the petintal. They come barreling out, I guess. Okay, so this is another episode where the all the statues come to life again in this particular chapter of the park. As you can see, there are statues right here, like this lion, this other lion here, this chicken, this fox. So as you can see, this is where the statues come to life again. Tell a story. At the zoo. So at some point, the animals come to life and attack the former park keepers and all that stuff. And the very idea of it scares people. Mary Poppins is able to demand him like a lion tamer. She doesn't recall any of it that happens. The card keeper explains that it happened, but it never did. Moving on. They eventually fall asleep with the lions. The Lucky Thursday. This chapter features Michael, as one day he is bad again, But on this particular day, he runs into a cat. He follows the cat into a world where he has no idea where he is. Mary Poppins is extra strict with him today. Michael tries to stay away from her a lot of times. One day, Michael decides to steal her whistle where she controls her. One day, Michael steals her whistle, and she's not paying attention to him at all. Once he steals it, Mary Poppins has not reacted once to him. Mary Poppins is basically reacting to the fact that this is not happening. She's not reacting to it. She's pretending not to react to it. So Michael thinks that she's not reacting to it. He's got magical powers over her. Michael wished that after this moment, he was not able to respond. So his wish came true. Michael's is like, be careful what you wish for. So Mary Poppins pretends not to listen to anything Michael does. Michael steals the whistle from her and pretends, and wow, he's able to take a whistle out, no problem. So with the whistle, he's able to skip around, do whatever he wants, no problem. He goes off with the cat, and suddenly this is where things get a little crazy here. The cats have a princess and daughters, and a queen, too. The cat's queen asks for Michael's hand in marriage after this moment. He's betrothed by her. Another thing that happens in this book is that all the cats are treated by servants that are always there. There are other children there, too. Not just Michael, but a whole bunch of them are servants to these cats. And they're crying, and they really all want to come back. Unfortunately, Michael was the only one that escaped, because this is what happens here. Michael screams and is crying with tears, saying, "Oh, Mary Poppins, where are you?" And he wants Mary Poppins to save him, and yeah. Eventually, Mary Poppins does save him, and Mary Poppins explains that I was only acting, and he was like, be careful what you wish for, and that the rules are there for a reason. He was teaching Michael that there's a reason why there are rules, because unlike these cats, they don't want to do with rules at all. So that's the story of that story. There is also, in the beginning of this chapter, before this happens, there's also a part where Michael is feeling lucky today, and everything just winds up right in front of him. Everything just comes easy to him at this moment. So before he meets up with the cats, everything is so lucky for him, too. He has a lucky star on him, too. He wishes that Mary Poppins never helped out. What you wished for. Never responded. And here he is pretending to be a pirate. Here are all the cats, as you can see. Here are the children serving the cats. Here is Mary Poppins saving Michael. He wears a certain pirate hat, too, at this point as well. The children in the story. Okay, so